Hello and a very warm welcome. For millennia the sands of the desert have held secrets, a civilization so advanced, so enigmatic, its legacy continues to captivate us to this day. We are of course journeying back in time, across vast, sun-scorched landscapes, to the banks of the mighty Nile, to the world of ancient Egypt. Here, humanity took extraordinary steps, engineering, art, belief. It is a story not just of kings and gods, but of a people intimately connected to their environment, their ingenuity shaping the very world around them. Today, we will uncover fascinating, sometimes startling, truths. We will look beyond the golden masks. If you're fascinated, please leave a like and subscribe. Of all the creations of the ancient world, 7 were deemed so magnificent that they were known as wonders. Today, we will explore one of them. Here, on the Giza Plateau, under the vast and unforgiving sky, stand the Great Pyramids. They are not merely tombs, they are mountains built by human hands. Monumental statements of power, monumental statements of belief, monumental statements of astronomical precision. For over 4,500 years, the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the largest of them all, has watched empires rise and fall. A silent, steadfast sentinel on the edge of the desert, its construction remains one of humanity's greatest logistical triumphs. Imagine, over 2 million blocks of stone, some weighing as much as 80 tons, quarried and transported often from hundreds of miles away. The sheer scale of the workforce required is staggering, but this was not the work of slaves. Evidence now suggests a highly organized workforce, well-fed, respected, Egyptian citizens laboring for their king. They saw him as a living god, a conduit between the earthly and the divine. The purpose, to secure the pharaoh's journey into the afterlife. The pyramid's 4 sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions. To build such wonders, one requires more than just muscle. One needs a method of communication, of recording knowledge, of giving commands that can last for eternity. The ancient Egyptians developed one of the earliest and most beautiful solutions: hieroglyphics. This was not simply a form of writing. It was a sacred art, known to them as Midu Neter, the words of the gods. Each symbol was a miniature work of art, a window into their world. The script is a complex mixture of elements. Some hieroglyphs are pictograms, representing the object they depict, like a wave for water. Others are phonograms, representing sounds much like letters, and still others are determinatives, silent symbols placed to clarify meaning. For example, a person's name and a town's name. It was a sophisticated and flexible system that could convey complex ideas with nuance and elegance. For centuries, these beautiful symbols were a mystery. They were seen as magical symbols, not a functioning language. It was not until the discovery of the Rosetta Stone in 1799, and the subsequent decipherment by Jean-François Champollion, that the voices of the ancient Egyptians could finally, once again, be heard across the millennia. This breakthrough unlocked a civilization. Suddenly, temple walls were not just decorated, they were historical records. Papyrus scrolls were letters. Papyrus scrolls were poems. Papyrus scrolls were legal contracts. Papyrus scrolls were medical texts. Hieroglyphics provide us with the most intimate and detailed account of this ancient society, allowing us to read their stories in their very own words. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not an end but a transition, a dangerous journey to a new beginning in the field of reeds, their version of paradise. To undertake this journey, one needed to be properly equipped. The tomb was not merely a final resting place, it was an eternal home, a starting point for the voyage of the soul, and so it was filled with all the things one might need and all the things one held dear for an everlasting existence. The wealth buried with a pharaoh like Tutankhamun is legendary. Golden shrines, jewel-encrusted thrones, chariots, weaponry. These were not just displays of wealth, they were essential equipment. The pharaoh would need his chariot to traverse the underworld, his throne to assert his royal status among the gods, and his treasures to ensure a comfortable and kingly afterlife. Food, wine, oils, linens were also included, providing sustenance for the spirit or ka. But it wasn't only inanimate objects that accompanied the deceased. The Egyptians had a deep affection for their animal companions. Mummified cats, mummified dogs, mummified monkeys. The belief was that these beloved pets would join their masters in the afterlife, continuing a bond of companionship that even death could not sever. This practice reveals the core of their belief system. The afterlife was a direct continuation of earthly life, but perfected. Everything one enjoyed on the banks of the Nile, food, games, companionship, status, was expected to continue. The burial, therefore, was an act of profound hope and meticulous planning. It was a carefully curated starter pack for eternity, ensuring that the deceased would want for nothing as they navigated the perils of the underworld to be reborn into paradise. Life on the Nile was not all monumental construction and solemn ritual. The ancient Egyptians, like all peoples, enjoyed moments of leisure and competition. Their favorite pastime was a board game called Senet, played by pharaohs and farmers alike for over 3,000 years. The name translates as the game of passing, and it was more than entertainment. It simulated the journey through the afterlife. The Senet board is a grid of 30 squares arranged in 3 rows of 10. Players raced pieces across the board. Moves were decided by the throw of casting sticks or knucklebones, ancient dice. The path was not straightforward. Certain squares could be beneficial or detrimental, representing trials in the underworld. Square 15, the House of Rebirth, a safe haven. Square 27, the House of Water, a perilous trap needing rescue, symbolizing the primordial waters of chaos. The goal: navigate all pieces across the board and off the final square, symbolizing arrival in the field of reeds and union with the sun god Ra. There is perhaps no name more synonymous with ancient Egypt than Cleopatra. Her image is one of exotic power, of a quintessential Egyptian queen. But here, history presents us with a most remarkable twist. The last active pharaoh of Egypt was not by blood an Egyptian at all. She was a descendant of Greek Macedonians, of the Ptolemaic dynasty, established by one of Alexander's generals, Ptolemy the Soter, some 300 years before her birth. Her family ruled as a foreign, Greek-speaking elite. For generations they stayed separate. They often married within the family to preserve their bloodline. They governed from the Hellenistic city of Alexandria, a hub of Greek culture, science, and philosophy. Most predecessors never learned the Egyptian language. They ruled through Greek administration, but Cleopatra was different. She was a brilliant, astute politician. She knew she had to be seen as an Egyptian to truly rule. She learned the native tongue, she embraced Egyptian religious customs, she presented herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis. Her liaison with Julius Caesar, and with Mark Antony, were not just romances, they were calculated political alliances, designed to protect Egypt's autonomy from Rome's ever-expanding power. She used her immense charm, her intellect, and the vast wealth of Egypt as diplomatic tools. So while her ancestry was purely Greek, her identity, her political ambition, and her ultimate legacy are woven into Egypt's final chapter of independence. The spiritual landscape of ancient Egypt was as rich and diverse as the fertile banks of the Nile. It was a world teeming with divine beings, a vast and complex pantheon of more than 2,000 gods and goddesses. Each deity had its own domain, personality and role in maintaining Ma'at. At the apex stood Ra. Day he sailed the sky, night he journeyed through the underworld battling Apep to be reborn at dawn. Osiris, the benevolent king, murdered by Set, resurrected by Isis, ruler of the underworld. Horus avenged his father and became rightful king of the living. Anubis guided souls to the scales, hearts weighed against the feather of Ma'at. Egyptians saw no contradiction in this multitude. Their approach was fluid. Gods could merge, like Amun-Ra. These gods were active in daily life. Their favor was courted through ritual. Their presence was everywhere. The rising sun, the flooding of the Nile, and the beating of a human heart. To the ancient Egyptians, the preservation of the physical body after death was of paramount importance. They believed that the soul, or Ba, needed to be able to return to its body, its Khat. If the body decayed, the soul would be lost forever, and so they developed a complex, sacred, and remarkably effective process: mummification. It was a 70-day ritual, a blend of surgical procedure and religious rite, removal of the brain via the nostrils, a left-side incision to extract stomach, intestines, liver, lungs. The heart remained for judgment, organs in canopic jars, the body dried in natron, anointed with oils, filled with linen or sawdust, meticulously wrapped with amulets and prayers, an eternal vessel for the soul. While we often think of ancient medicine in terms of magic and spells, the physicians of ancient Egypt possessed a remarkable degree of practical medical knowledge. The Edwin Smith Papyrus reveals a modern, systematic approach, examination, diagnosis, treatment, and prognosis, across 48 traumatic injuries. Advice to stitch gaping wounds, set broken arms in splints, use honey for its antibacterial properties, and attention to cleanliness and clear terminology for pus, inflammation, and tumors. They even performed complex surgeries, trepanation with healed bone. Though bound by religious limits, they laid foundations of clinical observation still with us today. One cannot understand ancient Egypt without understanding the river that created it. The Greek historian Herodotus famously called Egypt the gift of the Nile, and honestly, no truer words have been spoken. In a vast desert, this single river was the source of all life. Its predictable annual flood left rich black silt, kemet, enabling abundant harvests of wheat and barley. Flood, planting, harvest, their year in 3 seasons, Akhet, Pere, Shemu. The Nile was their highway, moving stone, grain, cattle and people, and it provided fish, papyrus for writing and mud for bricks, a lifeblood of work, play and ritual. The iconic image of an ancient Egyptian, with their dark, almond-shaped eyes, is no accident of art. They were masters of cosmetics. Kohl, ground galena, applied with a stick. Beyond beauty, it invoked the protection of Horus. Remarkably, modern science suggests lead compounds may have stimulated an immune response that helped prevent eye infections. Makeup signaled status and beauty, green malachite, red ochre, elaborate wigs, so essential they were buried among grave goods for a beautiful, protected existence in the next life. And so our journey through the sands of time comes to a close. Born from one river, they reached for the stars and whispered secrets through a sacred script. From pragmatic doctors to games with profound hope, from rites to radiant temples. A world of enduring beauty that still illuminates our time. There are still secrets beneath the sand. Thank you for joining me on this remarkable voyage. I'm curious what resonates most with you. Share your favorite fact below, and if you wish to continue these explorations with me, a subscription ensures you don't miss our next adventure. Until then, farewell.